As we've been talking about, the U.S.-Iran conflict is expanding as U.S. military strikes continue for the third day. Iran has launched strikes on neighboring countries who are allies of the U.S., Middle Eastern countries, including the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. And yesterday on Truth Social, President Trump warned Iran that if it continues attacks on American military bases, the U.S. would strike back with a force never seen before. So as the situation continues to unfold, what could be the long-term implications in the Middle East and beyond? Joining us now for analysis on the latest developments is a former Pentagon official, Dr. Michael Rubin, who currently serves as the Director of Policy Analysis at the Middle East Forum. He is also a senior fellow at American Enterprise Institute, where he specializes in Middle Eastern countries. Dr. Rubin, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tony.
So let's talk about what's happening now. The leadership has been essentially taken out. They're going after command and control, going after these missiles. It looks like a pretty clearly stated mission that the U.S. military in Israel is undertaking. Am I reading that correctly?
You are reading that correctly. What's actually interesting, though, is while it appears that the United States has taken out some of the leadership that it wanted to take out, other people have not been targeted. And the question then becomes, are they not being targeted because they're simply on the B list for whatever drone or missile? Or are they not being targeted because Donald Trump is still thinking about a Venezuela-like solution of putting former regime officials in charge? I'm thinking specifically of the former presidents Hassan Rouhani, Mohammad Khatami, and the National Security Council Director Ali Larijani.
All right, speaking of some leaders that have not been taken out, who's directing Iran's response right now?
Well, that's a very good question. And we don't know for sure, but it seems that the person who has the greatest grasp over the command and control is Ali Larijani, who's the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council. He's important because he was in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Then he became the Deputy Minister of Social Affairs. Then he became an advisor to Ali Khamenei. So it really checks all the bases. And he's the one who has said that Iran isn't going to negotiate with the United States. If he's the one issuing those sorts of statements, it's likely he's in charge, Tony.
All right, so help me understand the strategy that they've kind of been employing of hitting neighboring countries and targeting their energy facilities, oil and gas facilities.
There's two things going on here, Tony, and I think they're both mistakes on Iran's part. First of all, by striking neighboring countries, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, even Cyprus, what the Iranians are trying to do is get these countries to intercede with the United States and say, Israel, United States, you need to stop. The opposite is actually happening, however. These countries who were fence sitters before, who weren't necessarily happy with the conflict with Iran, are now targeting Iran. The second issue, however, is that when going after the energy resources, the Iranians are trying to increase the price of that energy with the purpose of getting money for themselves and also creating political pressure back in the United States, Europe, and elsewhere.
I think you're right. I think Iran has underestimated the fact that a lot of these countries weren't saying much, but they didn't like the position that Iran was in because it was a latent threat to them.
You're absolutely right. But in this case, the Iranians really don't have the ability to do what they're doing for that long. First of all, when the markets have experienced a small bump in the price of oil, Tony. But remember, most of Iran's oil was sanctioned anyway. And with Venezuela really coming back on, what Iran had been selling, they had been selling to China, and they had been selling illegally. So in this case, I suspect that the pressure that Iran wanted to assert on the United States and the region is rapidly going to decline.
All right, Dr. Rubin, you're an expert in the Middle East. Help me understand what might be likely outcomes here. What parallels in history do we have of a regime being brought down like this, where the people there maybe take over? I mean, what are the likely outcomes?
Well, the best historical parallel would probably be Serbia in 1999. Although it's important to remember that in Serbia, Slobodan Milosevic didn't lose power immediately during the bombing campaign. He lost power shortly thereafter when he tried to remain in power after a fraudulent election. Other people will point out what happened to Imperial Japan after World War II. But the important thing to remember, of course, is that was after World War II. After the Pacific Theater fight and so forth, we bombed Japan into submission. But we're not talking about using nuclear weapons here. The problem right now is that the Iranians believe that perhaps they can simply outlast Donald Trump because they have lots of evidence that Donald Trump doesn't necessarily have the attention span to outlast them.
Given your understanding of what they have, their capacity, the president is saying this could be 4 to 5 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. The United States is prepared to go longer. What is your sense?
My sense is what you're saying is true. The president has privately said he expects us to go on for about 40 days. He's also told people that that he believes that the United States is ahead of schedule, and that's because instead of having to hunt down every single Iranian leader, they all decided to have breakfast together on the first day. So you have a situation where we actually are in good shape. The big question will be whether we run out of munitions, whether Israel runs out of munitions or defense, and whether the Gulf states run out of defense. But again, Iran is going to run out of the missiles and the drones it's firing at people.
All right, we have 45 seconds left. Dr. Rubin, does this open a new chapter of greater global instability or greater stability?
It all depends on what the end result is in Iran. If we actually have a stable, non-Islamist republic, that's going to be huge. That's going to stabilize the entire region. If we have a civil war, that's going to be the worst case scenario, Tony.
Dr. Rubin, always appreciate your insights. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.